Welcome to another episode of Off Air, the new TV programme from Talk Radio on TV. I'm Mike Graham, of course, and with me today as a special guest, Mahyar Tousi, who is the foremost and only prominent conservative YouTuber in the entire land. Mahyar, very good afternoon to you. Welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming in. You've had a particularly busy last few days. You appeared on the overnight Talk Radio election night special, which was a great success. And I think it's probably fair to say we were in quite buoyant mood, were we not, when we saw the results of the exit poll and then what followed afterwards?
Yeah, and I was definitely sober.
Well, you were certainly one of the sober people. I'm not sure everybody on the show was, to be honest, but we best not mention any names.
Yeah, no. No, it was interesting because throughout the whole campaign, I was always one of the optimistic voices out there saying, actually, we're still going to be fine.
Yeah.
And then towards the end, I kept getting like more nervous and nervous. And about 9:55 p.m. on the night, 5 minutes before the exit poll, I was actually shaking. I didn't know what to expect anymore.
No, I was exactly the same because, of course, as we've now discovered, Twitter is not a very good place to follow
Britain,
politics.
That's just
because I mean, I saw today a graphic which was put out by an organisation about the voting of the young people of this country, and if in fact 18 to 24 votes had been counted, the whole country's red.
Yeah.
Right, which tells you that the Labour kind of recruitment process for the youth of the youthquake is actually working. However, it's just, I guess, not working enough because I've also spoken to pollsters who say the problem with kind of going after the young vote is that they don't win elections.
No, because they haven't had the incentive to come out properly. And we talked about the youthquake actually on the night on the panel. Yes, there was a failure of having the lack of Corbyn youthquake this time compared to 2017, but doesn't mean there's no left-wing youthquake for Labour. It's still there.
Right.
And I point out the problem that for the centre-right parties, including the Tory party, is that if they're not careful, over the next couple of terms, eventually they're going to lose the government. And the moment the Labour Party get into power, the first thing they're going to do is they bring down the voting age.
Yeah.
And by that time, this is the time they had the Tories, from now until then, to make sure basically they get the young people, at least some of them, on their side. Otherwise, they're going to keep voting Labour and the Tories will never be in government.
I mean, the interesting thing for me as well is how middle class these youngsters are. I mean, you would have seen, I'm sure, you may have even been retweeting over the weekend, a dreadful young woman who said that she wanted to go into medicine, she wants to work for the NHS, and she wants to care about people, and it was all F Boris, and you called him the C word. I mean, it's quite shocking, really. If you were her family and you were her parents, if I was her father, I would be embarrassed, and you're kind of going, and she sounded very posh. I mean, I don't really believe, for example, if you go to the valleys of South Wales or the mean streets of Newcastle, you might find Labour voters, but they're not Marxists.
No, I grew up on a council estate in Lewisham,
Right.
and the people I was hanging out with as a young person, when I was young.
You're still young to me.
They were either, no comment.
I love all these people who go, oh, I'm 30 now, I feel so old. I'm like, don't even go there. I spoke to a guy today, actually, who was telling me about how they didn't teach programming and coding when he was learning about computers in school. And I had to say, well, let me tell you, when I was at school, we didn't have computers. So how long ago that was.
No, but that's the past in terms of young people were either not political, but if they were, they might have been working class or Labour voters, but just casually. Whereas when I went to university, it's a whole different environment.
Yeah.
Like very middle class, it's all because of the academia, the whole environment changes young people.
And universities have become very woke, haven't they? And very
woke,
kind of lefty and almost to the point where you can't even admit to being a Tory.
No, and it's getting worse and worse. People were saying back in the 70s was bad, like 80s was bad, universities. It's actually, maybe it's not worse in that way. It is worse on some levels, but it's also social media. Because we have the internet, we see that more often. It's more magnified.
It's much more toxic now, it seems to me. I mean, even in the old days, when I was at FE College, which is where I went before I went to university to do my A-levels, my economics lecturer was a communist. So I started the Young Conservatives Club just to piss him off. I didn't really do it because I wanted to be a conservative. But, nobody then harangued me and harassed me. But I imagine if you tried to do something like that now, you'd probably be chased out of the building and you'd probably be banned from doing it. You certainly wouldn't be able to do it in the Student Union building.
No, actually, there's a professor at the university, I think it's King's, who's actually one of my subscribers on my channel. I met him, and he's a professor for history or something, and he said something about Brexit. He wrote something, I believe, and it was very subtle, just factual, and he lost his job as the head of the department. for no reason.
That's extraordinary.
Mental,
and I mean, has he even thought about taking them to the cleaners, taking them to court in some way, shape, or form?
No, I think it did a like local publicising it with the press, but not much. But
it's really dreadful, isn't it? But what it tells you is that the win by Boris Johnson on Friday morning was so colossal that you wonder whether is this just a kind of academia-driven and middle-class-driven programme which doesn't actually have that much traction outside of those places, where if you did go to, I don't know, Sedgefield, where, Tony Blair's constituency was lost to the Tories on Friday, what would they say in the streets of Sedgefield? I don't think they'd be talking about transgender issues or, if you asked them, can you identify a woman, or what's the definition of a woman, where Joe Swinson couldn't answer the question, she wasn't sure. They're not caring about any of that stuff. They care about immigration. They don't want mass immigration. They don't really care about the NHS unless they're having to go to the NHS for something, But
that's the thing. So their priorities have changed, and the other policies that they were giving out, the whole economic left-wing policies, the free stuff.
Yeah.
They didn't care as much. They were treating them as bribing. We're going to give you free stuff, like free unicorns. But the priority for us is to talk about the cultural left-wing stuff.
Yeah.
And
to try and demonise the Tories. You don't want to be a Tory because that's horrible. That means you're a horrible individual.
Oh, yeah. I'm definitely horrible, apparently.
Well, you had a recent incident, did you not, where your number was posted somewhere?
So, last night there was a group chat with Momentum, and they basically, someone found my number. They shared it there, and then they actually said, this is Mahyar Tousi. It's his fault that we lost the election.
Right.
And
of course it's your fault.
So call him. It's me, Laura Kuenssberg, Israel, McDonald's. It's all
Well, I've seen some of them talking about some kind of Israeli conspiracy.
Oh yeah, definitely.
To stop Jeremy Corbyn getting in. I mean, really, I think Mossad have got some better things to do.
The funny thing is, they can't really blame the Russians this time because Russia was behind Labour.
Yes, that's always a tricky one. So, did you get a lot of nuisance calls then? What did they say when you picked up the phone?
Well, last night, I had a number of calls, and luckily I had some popcorn at home, so I was eating my popcorn and just listening.
Put him on the speaker.
It
was it just a stream of abuse or something?
Yeah, it was like a radio show, just like without me talking, it was just them ranting.
It's unbelievable, isn't it? But I found the Labour Party have been so bad. Before the election, during the election as well. I mean, I was talking to quite a lot of their front benchers because they, for some reason, liked coming on my show. And
Lisa and Andy.
And we would create Lisa and Andy. Well, I'm horrified to see that she might be the new leader, because I'm going to have another conversation with her and ask her about the deal that she wants now, which she said there didn't exist.
There
was no deal, Angela Rayner, for heaven's sake. I mean, can you imagine any of these people in charge of the Labour Party? I mean, it'll be quite funny, I suppose, because they'll be just as bad as Corbyn. I can't think of anyone that they've got that would be able to win an election against Boris Johnson.
Oh, it's going to be absolutely fascinating. And I was getting worried when we got the majority and Brexit's getting done. I was like, what about my channel? What am I going to talk about? But now we're going to have the leadership, the Labour leadership, which is going to be absolutely chaotic.
Right.
And it's going to be probably worse than what the US Democrats are going through with finding their nominee for next year. And all the options.
Well, it's going to be very factional, isn't it? You're going to be Emily Thornbury.
Yeah, you got the Remainer side, Emily Thornbury and Keir Starmer.
Except you say she's a Remainer. I mean, I saw a video at the weekend where she was basically flip-flopping backwards and forwards. I think they had about 15 different clips. One said Remain, one said second referendum, one said, well, of course we're going to get out, that's what the people want. Next one was, no, we don't give it back to the people. No, I'm absolutely certain on this that we will be leaving on March the 29th. There's no question about it. I mean, it just goes on and on and on. And then they wonder why people didn't like their Brexit policy.
Well, they think if they multitask, people will find them skillful. But actually, in reality, they need to just pick one position.
Yeah.
Whatever the position was, even if it was second referendum, from day one, go out and proudly say that you're going to be anti-democracy.
Right.
And some people like it.
Well,
I mean, you're still going to lose.
It didn't do much for the Lib Dems, to be fair.
But they went too far.
They've now ended up with actually fewer MPs than they had before they got all the rejects from the Tory party and Labour. So they've only got 11 now, right?
Yeah, I think they have 11 now, and I always forget they exist. But yeah, apparently that's a real
party. Well, it's easy to do now because, of course, there was a time not that long ago, maybe 2 months ago, when they were predicting that they might get another 300 MPs in the next election.
Our future Prime Minister Jo Swinson.
Our future Prime Minister Jo Swinson, who now apparently wants to be a dame because she wants to be parachuted into the House of Lords, which apparently, and this was one of the things actually that riled a lot of people this morning on my show, because people are like, hang on a minute, so this woman loses her seat because she's an anti-democrat. Because she refuses to carry out the will of the people. She's now going to be able to get back into public payroll, by being nominated in the Queen's New Year's Honours list to become a member of the House of Lords. I mean, it shouldn't be a possible
It's
thing.
ridiculous. The minimum reform we could do with the Lords is to stop politicians from going in there.
Yeah.
Like the actual House of Commons politicians. Like, stop doing that.
I think they should. I mean, I hope
makes no
Boris.
sense.
Well, I mean, from the early kind of indications of what Boris Johnson's going to do, we know that he's going to have a look at the civil service.
Yes.
We know that he's going to have to sort of take a sword to the red tape of all of that. First up is defence, we think.
Yep.
He's going to try and improve the border force. He's going to try and put some money and investment into the north of England because to hang on to those voters. And he's going to do stuff to the NHS. I don't know what he's going to do to the NHS. Do you?
Well, but the NHS, just throw more money at it.
But that's another thing. We just can't keep doing that.
I think the best thing to do, and I think we've had some smart Tory politicians in the past where you invest into it, but then you slowly reform it without realising.
Yeah.
Whereas the problem we had in 2010, the first government, was that they were publicly saying we're reforming it, so that didn't go well. But you're right about Boris Johnson. From what we've heard, is they targeting a few things, which is really good. They're looking at the TV licence. They're looking at
that's going to be frightening the hell out of the BBC.
That's going to be interesting. Yeah.
Right?
And they're also looking at politicising the Supreme Court.
Yeah.
So that they don't really get involved with like random political stuff, which is useful. And obviously the civil service. And now next we're going to have to look at everything else that's going to the House of Lords and everything else with their establishment.
Because now that they've got a big enough majority, there's a lot they could do, isn't there? I mean, and they might as well use the time and the power that they've got to do those things, because they could presumably start suggesting, well, how about we cap the House of Lords for the moment, because it's got too many people in it. It's grown to some ridiculous number, like 800 and something, I think.
It's quite a lot.
And more people go in, and they're not dying as quickly as they used to. So I'm afraid, you know, there's not even enough room for all of them, I don't think, you know. But the BBC, I think, is fascinating as well, because, I mean, after the Channel 4, one of the things that we laughed about on Thursday night when we saw each other was the way that the big main sort of networks were handling this terrible, terrible tragedy, because it looked like they were handling a tragedy. You know, John Burko, who apparently was paid 60 grand by Sky for one night. It's a lot of money, isn't it? Have you seen, by the way, there's another clip, I don't know if you've seen it doing the rounds, he's on some sort of talent show in Italy.
Already?
Yeah, and whoever tweeted it out, I think it might have been Toby Young, this is what he's going to be doing for the rest of his life, and he's basically shouting order in Italian on a stage, right? And you're kind of going, really? That's where you want to go, is it? I mean, he will end up in the jungle next year for sure. Because there is no celebrity Big Brother anymore.
He's going to use his fame and his platform.
It's kind of undignified, isn't it?
It's ludicrous. The irony is, he was a sort of politician that, kind of like Jacob Rees-Mogg, it's all about constitution and kind of procedures.
Right. I'm protecting the people from the government and all that.
Now he actually shows that it's all about his ego.
Yeah, so totally.
That's the truth.
And I'm presuming he normally would have expected to go into the House of Lords. Most speakers do, I think. Bessie Boothroyd did, and I think so did the Scottish guy.
I believe so.
Whose name I forget for the moment. But you know, I'm sure he would expect to go to the House of Lords, but he may not get there.
No,
because
not
Boris.
with this government.
And I actually think Boris is going to be a good prime minister, because I think he's got the sort of the vision for it, which he showed. He's got a very good team around him. Dominic, great picture of him and Dominic Cummings and Carrie celebrating.
Well, that's what I was thinking that on the night when you and I, in a number of shows throughout the last few months, we kept saying throughout the whole Brexit process and everything, and people were panicking. We said, "Don't worry, guys."
The evil genius has got it.
He's coming home.
Yeah. And funnily enough, I was talking to somebody from the Brexit Party who told me that, you know, oh no, Dominic's not involved anymore. You know, he's behind the scenes.
He's left.
He's only really there for Brexit. He's not involved in the election campaign.
No.
Well, I don't think so.
No.
And it's now looking like this is he is an evil genius, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't say evil because I know things about him that I'm not saying.
Well, the only thing evil about him is his fashion sense.
Yes.
He needs to sort that out.
That is quite evil. And coming from you, who are always impeccably dressed, I would have to say he should take some advice on that. Because I watched your video, which I think you put out on Friday night, in front of a Christmas tree. It's very funny. And you looked absolutely shot, shattered. You know, hadn't slept, I think you said, for 3 days.
Yeah, since Wednesday.
Right.
I still haven't slept properly.
Really?
But mainly because of the prank calls that are
yeah, well, that's nice. Well, presumably that will wear off.
I hope not. It's fun.
I think the same thing has happened to Julie Hartley-Brewer. After a while, it's just they lose interest and they stop.
It didn't work on her either, because she enjoys it. She's like, yeah, come on.
Well, she's the same. I mean, you know, they think that we're sitting here, you know, doing the job that we do, and we're like them, snowflakes. We're not. You know, you can do as much as you like. You can come at me in any way, shape, or form. But you might have to expect to get something back, because that's the way it goes.
No, it's been interesting. And actually, on the point of these people bullying, and we call them left-wing bullies, is that they don't realize they're actually helping by publicizing us. And then the more they've been sharing my number and talking about me, my subscribers are still going up. So.
Right. Well, there's no question that it does wonders for your credibility, apart from anything else, with your core audience. I mean, I had a conversation with Sebastian Gorka, a guy whose radio show I go on sometimes in America. He, for those of you who don't know, used to be in the Trump White House. He's regarded by some people as an extreme right-winger. I don't regard him as an extreme right-winger. He's certainly more right-wing than I am.
He's a conservative.
But he's a conservative, But he was saying, you know, along with quite a few people in America who are watching the election result, basically that, you know, what's going to happen here is the Democrats move even further to the left in the same way the Labour Party did, plays right into Donald Trump's hands, and he gets in for another 4 years because they don't, one, they don't have a decent candidate, and two, all of his people love the fact that these left-wingers, like Acacia, whatever her name is, you know, are basically doing his job for him. Because nobody in America wants a Marxist economy. I'm sorry. I mean, one of the great things about Obamacare, and I've lived over there, I was married to an American, right? One of the things people don't get is when you go to an ordinary, average American, doesn't have to be a right-winger or a left-winger, and say, now, I understand that you're going to pay for your family's health care, but I also want you to pay for his health care because he can't afford it. And they'll just go, what?
What?
No, we're not doing that.
It's an alien concept, Americans,
total alien
socialist
concept.
stuff. And, and it's hilarious how you mentioned Labour do it as well, like the Democrats, when they lose, they say, like 2010, Brown lost, they said, it's because we weren't left-wing enough. 2015, Miliband lost because we weren't left-wing enough. 2017 and 19, they're going to say the same thing again. So they're going to go after, well, they're going to get Rebecca Long Bailey or Angela Rayner. And for them, Lisa Nandy is actually a right-winger.
Yes.
And Lisa Nandy is not a right-winger.
No.
She's not even a moderate. She's to the left of Gordon Brown.
Yeah.
But compared to these people...
but now she looks like a sort of massive Blairite. You know, because she's not this rabid sort of communist, you know.
No, but that's the only difference. Otherwise,
but I think the thing that I'm pleased about, though, is that the electorate saw through all of these giveaways because what they were proposing was to change the economy of this country, you know, just completely and utterly into something that it's never been. No. Even more left-wing than it was during the 70s, before Margaret Thatcher was able to privatise a lot of the companies, take them out of, you know, nationalisation. I mean, I remember when, you won't remember because you were too young, but, you know, when the only way to get a telephone was to basically bribe somebody, you know, because there was such a long waiting list that you'd probably have to wait. If you were moving into a new flat or something, unless you knew somebody, luckily I did, you'd have to wait about 2 months for somebody to come and put a line in.
It was the same with buying a car, wasn't it? You have to basically get
same with I mean, I wasn't old enough to buy cars in those days, but they didn't have much. But also, you know, the electricity, there was London Electricity Board, and so you could only deal with one company, and they could charge you what they wanted. If you wanted something done, you had to wait for their timing to do it. Same with the trains. I mean, Rupert Murdoch basically busted a whole bunch of unions while he set up the Murdoch Wapping plant, which was back in the sort of 80s, right? But one of the things that he did was very cleverly was he bought a transport company with a fleet of lorries because they couldn't rely on the trains to deliver the papers because they knew that the trains would come out in favour of the striking engineers and wouldn't deliver the papers. So he just bought a load of lorries, bought a transport company, and they had this huge ramp at Wapping where they used to drive out at high speed to make sure the pickets didn't stop them, and they just, you know, they all got out of the way. And when you think back to the power that those people had, I mean, I did my first sort of set of newspaper shifts, basically, in the old Bouverie Street offices of The Sun when Kelvin Mackenzie was in charge, right? And I worked there, I used to do like Thursday and Friday evening shifts for about 3 or 4 weeks. And on the 4th week, I think I had my first opportunity to get a byline. So I was going to get my first byline in the paper, which in those days, I was like 21, 22. Yeah. Great thing. The paper didn't come out. And I said, well, what do you mean the paper's not coming out? And the guy said, somebody's got pissed off about something in the print room, so they've all walked out. And they've all gone to the pub and the paper's not coming out. The Times didn't publish for over a year. Yeah. Right? When it was edited by, I think, Harry Evans, because there was a dispute with the print workers. But and it just went on and on and on.
It's a whole different time, and you can't, anyone, all these kids talking about taking us back in time and to the 70s, the 50s and all that, it's just absolutely mental. And we have to understand that Western Europe, and people in general, in democracies, they still kind of like a bit of it's not really populism, but government spending. They do like generally
well,
public services to be strong. That's what Boris did.
I mean, we in this country expect more from the government in terms of
America,
what they give us than in America, where they want
Europe
all
is
of their
different
money.
to America.
They want all of their money given to them. Basically, they choose how to spend
just
it.
leave me alone.
Yeah, but in Europe, of course, I mean, some countries charge an awful lot more tax than we do, don't they?
Well, actual Europe is like worse than us. Like, you have to go out there as a party to promise all the free stuff, otherwise you won't win. Even Le Pen and Front National, who are right-wing, economically they're very left-wing. They have to offer all these free unicorns. Whereas in this country, we are also, as voters, we kind of want some free stuff. Well, public services to be strong at the NHS, but there's a line. We have a line, and that's what Labour, that's how they went wrong. They were like free broadband and stuff. My sister, she's like 16, 17, and she's not very political, and she's been watching this sort of stuff, and she came to me like, they keep saying free.
Yeah.
Are these free? Even she was questioning the word free. Like, nothing is free.
Nothing is free because somebody's got to pay for it. And also, one of the things that I said to Labour people whenever they would come on, I would say, well, why are you giving me free broadband? I can afford to pay for it.
It's £7 a month.
I thought it's supposed to, it's supposed to be like, for the many, not the few.
Yeah.
Technically speaking, you would see me as one of the few.
Yeah.
Why are you giving me stuff for free? Surely you should be taxing me more. And they couldn't really answer that question.
Well, it's the same with tuition fees. They want to make it free. But that means all the rich kids.
Yeah.
It's free for them.
Same with the waspy women, they want to give a 15 grand immediate cash boost to Theresa May, and you go, well, she doesn't really need the money.
No,
that's ridiculous. And also, if it meant, I said this to John McDonnell, if it meant so much to you and it's a moral obligation, how come it's not in the manifesto? How come you only put it in after Boris said he wasn't going to give you any money? I mean, it's so transparent. I mean, I was quite surprised, actually, the speed with which McDonnell took a step back, because I thought maybe he might fancy his chances as running the thing. But he's obviously decided that it's not for him.
I think he wants to be the kingmaker again. He's going to go behind someone like Rebecca Long-Bailey, or if she fails, maybe Angela Rayner.
She's kind of his creature, isn't she?
Yeah, it's quite weird.
Yeah. I mean, talk about people calling Boris Johnson sinister. I don't think there's any doubt that John McDonnell is a sinister individual.
Oh, yeah. He's publicly said a lot of things that no one should say.
And he's also very slick. I mean, the good thing about Corbyn is that he's got such a bad temper and he hates being questioned that he's actually not very good. But McDonnell's very good. He's very good, and he's strategical. He's kind of like the difference between George Osborne and David Cameron. Yeah, he's more like George Osborne. He's more of the actual strategical, cunning sort of person. Yeah, and so he would have completely wrecked the economy. Oh, no question at all. And I mean, can you imagine if they'd got in? I mean, they'd probably shut this building down for a start and just said, sorry, that's not publishing anymore. I'm afraid we're going to close you down or nationalise it or something. Nationalise News UK. So, I mean, quite remarkable end for them. And I don't know what Corbyn will do. I wonder whether he will shuffle off and either expect to be given a peerage. Surely not. I mean, his record is so awful. It really is. I mean, people have this kind of idea that he's some kind of, visionary. Yep. He's completely useless, actually. When you analyse what he's managed to achieve as leader of the Labour Party, he's achieved nothing. And I don't think he's really upset about losing, because I've always said he's a student activist. I don't think he really wanted to be Prime Minister. He was enjoying the campaign stuff and just ranting, but he doesn't really want to be Prime Minister. No. It's too much work for him. So. Well, also, it's too responsible. He has to deal with people that he clearly dislikes immensely. He has to make decisions. Yeah, well, he has to make decisions as well, but he clearly has a massive problem talking to people who don't agree with him. So, how can you be Prime Minister of the country when you'd have to meet Donald Trump? You'd have to meet the civil service people from the civil service who you might not like. You'd have to meet people from the House of Lords, the Privy Council. I know that he's already supposed to be in that. But, he's such a failure as a politician and as a man. And I don't shirk from saying that, because I think he absolutely is. Did you just assume his gender, by the way? I did, I'm afraid, yeah. I'm no Joe Swinson, I think I can probably say that he's a man. I mean, and he hasn't taken it like a man, though, has he? He's taken it like a toddler. Like a baby. Who says, you've had the most terrible campaign of abuse against me. I'm the only person who's ever It's not my fault, I didn't do anything wrong. These are the same people who are going around saying that, well, everybody knows that Boris Johnson's a congenital liar. Yeah. He's untrustworthy, not fit to be Prime Minister, he's got children all over the place. I mean, that wasn't an attack on him, right? No. I mean, unbelievable. And then he's hiding from the cameras. He was out there. Yeah. I bet Channel 4 are crapping themselves at the moment, by the way. Did you see their broadcast? I didn't watch it. I saw the beginning when the exit poll came out. Yeah, but I saw the... I've seen that clip where they're literally... And I don't know what they were thinking. I mean, they had all these comedians lined up, lefty comedians, who literally were in tears.
No,
and they were kind of like
they couldn't control the emotions.
No.
Like you have to be more professional. Like,
Yeah.
people know how you're feeling.
Yeah.
Like it's just too bad. The audience,
Get on with it.
Like, were like, what is going on here?
Yeah, I mean, it was the most bizarre thing I think I've ever seen.
No, and it reminds me of what we saw in America in 2016 when the left wing, because in America it's more open, left wing, right wing broadcasters, whereas here everyone's supposed to be very cautious because of Ofcom. But in America,
Well,
all
they're
the
meant to be,
left-wing
but I
ones
don't
are-
really see much of that, do you?
No, they don't really do it. Like they don't practice what they're supposed to be, and Ofcom isn't doing anything about it. So,
Right.
well, whereas if we say something bad, then we're in trouble.
Yeah, we always are. Yeah, I mean, luckily on YouTube, as you know,
YouTube is fine.
YouTube is fine. But you've told me in the past though that you have to be careful with certain words.
For YouTube itself,
and,
yeah, there's a
and
different
they've kind
type,
of weaponized words in some
Yes,
ways.
I can't
right?
say that word.
You can't say weaponized.
No, you can't say feminism. You can't say war.
Does that, well, this is going out on YouTube. So what does that mean?
Well, it won't be banned. You just won't be monetized. You won't get money from it.
Okay. Well, I only make a little bit of money.
That's
not,
right.
I'm not doing it for the
This
money.
is for charities.
I'll tell you what I did actually get on Friday after I finished the show that you and I did. I then went and did the mid-morning show as normal,
Right.
and it was a slightly spaced out character walking back towards the tube. A guy came up to me, right, London transport worker, took me by the arm and shook me by the hand and said, "Thank you for everything you've done for us."
Yeah.
You know, because
And
so
you didn't
few-
even campaign.
Well, so few media people are neutral.
That's true.
You know, and I know people joke about the fact that I'm not neutral, but I actually am pretty fair to people. But the reason I was that, like you, I was optimistic about Brexit.
Yeah.
You know, I kept saying, people would ring in and they'd say, you know,
timing.
it's a nightmare, it's never going to happen, I just don't see it, you know, we're never going to get out of this horrible mess. And I was like, just, you know, trust in the evil genius, you know, trust in Cummings, he knows what he's doing.
Yep.
He knew that they would get to this point where if they couldn't get anywhere, they have an election, and he must have a strategy for beating Corbyn. And it turns out that Corbyn's strategy was so bad that he didn't really need a strategy. They just had to keep turning up.
And actually, we had to go through that bump in the road with Brexit stuff again, because if we had actually somehow delivered it in October with that Parliament, I don't want that.
No.
But
Because they would have
now,
attached all sorts of things to
well,
it. Right?
and just carry on with those people overall with every other policy. Whereas now we've cleansed the whole thing. We've gotten rid of all these people like Dominic Grieve and Anna Soubry, all the crybabies. And,
How great was that?
It's funny. It's like
Yeah, it was like
next,
it was like
next.
10-pin bowling, knocking them all over one by one. You know,
so
as the
now
night went on.
we're going to have. I mean, I wouldn't necessarily say the most right-wing parliament, but the most, well, at least respectful towards democracy.
Yeah.
The people who have been elected, the majority of them at least, because apart from the Labour.
Well, I
ones.
mean, I can't believe that people were saying that night, and will continue to say, oh, well, now actually, it might be that Boris waters Brexit down because he doesn't need the ERG. Why would he do that?
There's no need. Firstly, the withdrawal deal is already there anyway.
Yeah.
And then the next stage, actually, in fact, it's going to be the other way around because he has the power now in terms of his government. He's going to be strong against the EU when it comes to a trade deal.
Right.
So,
Well, the EU have already changed their tone. I mean, they're already
They're
saying,
scared.
oh, okay, well, I guess it's time to get Brexit done. I mean, they've practically fallen in line
Absolutely.
with what it is that we've been asking for. And what I was going to say to you before we just end our current Brexit discussions, can you see anything going wrong between now and January 31st in the sense of, you know, somebody like Gina Miller pops up with a lawsuit and goes, starts waving it, you know, Jolyon Morm suddenly jumps into view and starts talking about, you know, taking them to the Supreme Court. I can't see how they would do it.
Well, I wouldn't be surprised if there is an attempt that could get quite close to being an actual obstacle.
Even if it's just to try and off-put, you know, because most of what the filibustering has been about, for me, in the last year or so, has just been about delaying it and putting as much like Oliver Letwin's bill, where we all ended up having to work Saturday, you know, and then nothing happened. Was all about delaying it. It wasn't about actually stopping it. It was just about trying to keep it going.
I think that the one thing I've heard is that Gina Miller might be going on to the EU and actually somehow get either the European Parliament or the one of the last stages to sign off the actual deal to get them to reject it. But they won't do it anymore because they know that the Tories have a majority, which means if this deal doesn't go through, end of January,
well, then we leave with no deal. Yeah, well, that's the thing, because that was already the case.
It's
Remember?
lose for them.
Well, that was one of the hypotheses that was put forward, wasn't it, when Boris couldn't get it through Parliament, where we were like, well, can we not pay somebody 16 billion, you know, to reject it out of the European Council, and then we get no deal.
Exactly.
Which could have happened.
Yeah,
So I guess
if we
you're
had a
right.
majority,
So if there is no deal, then it's no deal.
But
we're still out.
They can't stop it in Parliament. So
Okay.
see how it
Now,
goes.
just before we stop, I wanted to ask you about your heritage, really, because you and I have spoken about this in the past. Your father still lives in Iran.
Yes.
Under what can be described as some pretty difficult difficult circumstances.
Yeah,
right?
so
tell us about your kind of your history with Iran and how you came to be here and what happened.
Yes, I was actually born there. My mother came here as a political refugee. She wasn't even political, but it's one of those countries that you just living your life and then somehow you go into trouble.
Yeah.
So she had to basically escape. And
what sort of time period are we talking about?
This was early 2000, so 2001 too.
Right.
And that's then when I came here after, like a few months after she came here legally, got approved, got paperwork sorted, and then I was under 18, so I was a kid, so I came here. And about 2002-03, they were already divorced, so my dad actually stayed there. And he has a business, he has a life, but then he also got into trouble because things are happening right now in Iran. There's a massive uprising, and everyone is now stuck. They're either in prison or under house arrest, or they can't.
And your dad's under house arrest.
So he's stuck. And
what does that mean? He can't actually go out, or can he go out with an escort? How does that work?
Yeah, I mean, it's a bit of a weird situation. It's one of those things that we can't really get into the details of that his situation. But he's fine, but he's not fine. He's living his life, and
he's not living as he would want to. I suppose.
Well, of course not. But things are changing. There's the movement has finally started, and it might take a couple of years. It might take a year or two.
Well, funnily enough, I saw, did I not, some Twitter activity around about the time all the demos were going on in Tehran. This is what happens when you have state-run broadband.
Well, yeah, exactly.
Because
they shut down the internet.
They shut down the internet.
Yeah, well, Iran over the last 40 years, before that, it was a secular, free market-based country, constitutional monarchy. And then, but towards the end, he had to become a bit more absolute-ish monarchy because of the communists protesting. It was a bit weird. But now it's Islamic socialist country.
It's a theocracy, right?
Theocracy, but mixed with socialism.
Yeah.
Both bad. Like, it just doesn't work.
It's like the double
Getting
whammy
religion
there, isn't it?
and socialism involved.
That's amazing. So, I mean, the people who are demonstrating are the sort of everyday types. They're not like the sort of crypto-anarchists that were demonstrating against Boris Johnson.
Initially, over the last 40 years, there have been some movements, and it's mostly been young and middle class.
Yeah.
Now it's the working class and people at the bottom who are basically just kind of Brexit again.
Yeah. Is it a sort of second Arab Spring type thing, do you think?
Yes, probably, but...
Because I was listening to, funnily enough, I was listening to a radio show the other week about this sort of new uprisings in the Middle East, like...
Lebanon and Iraq.
Lebanon's happening, Iraq's happening, Iran's happening. That's pretty dangerous places to be right now.
It's quite sensitive, and I think it won't be bloody, but it won't be as the aftermath won't be as bad as Syria or Libya, because these countries, the culture is slightly different in Iran. They've done it once. All they want, the people are asking for a referendum. They want to have a say into what sort of system they want. They want constitutional monarchy to be on the table again with the crown prince.
Right.
They want to have some secular republic and all that. And
so they want to get rid of all the ayatollahs?
Yes, and then just vote and then done.
Right.
That's what they want. They don't want some sort of civil war and that sort of stuff. It's fascinating to see how it actually ends, basically. So
it will be. And so will those ayatollahs give up, or will they not give up?
I think they're kind of like, if you put Jeremy Corbyn and Theresa May's resilience together, and refusing to leave, so it's kind of like that. They won't leave on their own, and they messed up the country so badly. They don't even they keep blaming everyone else. Like, it's Israel's fault. It's America's fault. They have nationalized everything. They have nationalized football teams. Football clubs are nationalized. Wow. Like, I'm like, why would you nationalise football teams?
That's ridiculous, isn't it?
So,
It really is. I mean, that's the thing. When people talk as well here in this country and say, oh, there's no freedom here, and you go, really? How about you try a couple of other places before you start talking like that? Because these idiots, as I say, that we were mentioning, who were demonstrating, I'm assuming that will be the end of it. They can't keep that up.
No.
But it was a sort of Friday night. He's not my Prime Minister. Well, he is, actually. And you just had an election.
Technically, they're right. It's Her Majesty's Prime Minister.
Yes, that's very true.
But yeah,
that's very true.
It's all stupid.
But it's going to be much fun to be had. I think if you're a Tory supporter, and if you're a Brexit supporter, and if you don't like socialism and you don't like Jeremy Corbyn, there's a lot of fun to be had, I think, over the course of the next few weeks. Mahyar, thank you very much indeed.
Thanks for having me.
We'll be back, actually, not next week, but after Christmas, with some more brilliant off-air guests.